So James Lee vs Gapryong Kim is probably the most split debate in the entirety of the Lookism fanbase. So why not discuss it? I started off by making a post in the Club VV Discord server. If you want to join, the link is in the description. A lot of your favorite Lookism content creators are gonna be there. Anyway, to my surprise, more people said Gapryong would win than James Lee. That's when I got the idea to make this video. So let's get into it. First of all, who is James Lee? Well, if we wanted to get really specific with this, we would have to refer to chapter 359 of Lookism, which is called James Lee End. The first generation, the generation of circles. This was a generation that was started by the followers of Gapryong Kim, after he got into politics. His followers, quote, started wars out of greed, which caused this generation to emerge. Members of the pre-generation began taking in students because of their lack of power. They taught them their own ways of combat, it was implied, and these students along with their pre-generation leaders would fight wars against each other. These students were called the Circles, the generation of circles. Then out of nowhere, a mysterious man emerged under the name James Lee. He defeated every first generation king with what was implied to be no difficulty, excluding Jake Kim's brother. And that was the end of the first generation. Practically all of the kings then decided to stop this war bullshit and just go after James Lee. So he changed his name to Diego Kang and turned into a K-pop star. That was by far James Lee's biggest feat. Not turning into a K-pop star, but defeating the first generation kings with little to no difficulty. And no injuries. Chapter 388. Jake Kim was fighting Sinu Han, trying to get him to remember who Big Deal really was, when Sinu started using invisible attacks. Cut to a flashback of Tae-Soo Ma. This is probably one of the most important flashbacks in all of Lookism. Tae-Soo called the invisible attacks a form of mastery. The invisible attacks consist of attacking your opponent's blind spots at such high speeds that they seem invisible to them. When drawn in the Lookism manhwa, you can almost see how fast they really are. The author puts emphasis on the fact that the user's limbs are not even visible. It's a level that only those who are fast enough can reach, Tae-Soo said. He then mentioned that Elite and James Lee were the only two people capable of reaching such a level of mastery so far. And then we saw Sinu using it in the same chapter against Jake. The first time we actually saw James Lee using invisible attacks, I think, was against Tae-Soo in chapter 366. Tae-Soo was shown not to be able to counter these attacks, as they were way too fast for him. Now for Gapryong Kim. So who is this dude? Back to chapter 388. Same flashback with Tae-Soo. He stated that there was one man able to hard counter the invisible attacks, and that was Gapryong Kim. He did it to protect his friends and to save them. Gapryong Kim was the man who started the pre-generation as a whole. Without him, Gangism wouldn't be a thing. No pre-generation equals no teachers with the circles. No generation of circles equals no first generation. And no first generation equals no second generation and no fucking Lookism. The people under him were Baeko Kwon, Elite, Tom Lee, and Jin Young Park. Or the main ones at least. Elite being another user of the invisible attacks. Now something very important here, and this may be a little complicated at first, but hear me out. So Charles Choi as an old man was able to beat Ji Chang Kwak, the strongest first generation king, out of his prime, whom James Lee had taken no body part away from, with very little difficulty too. And this was a person who served under Gapryong Kim, simply because he was stronger. So what the hell was Gapryong Kim like in his prime? He probably would have beat Ji Chang with like negative difficulty. So here's what makes this debate difficult in my opinion. Tae-Soo Ma stated that to date there were no people capable of reaching the mastery of invisible attacks besides Elite and James Lee, meaning that when he stated that Gapryong overcame this level of mastery in a fight with someone, he probably meant his fight with Elite. Gapryong was able to counter Elite's invisible attacks, and Elite as an old man defeated Ji Chang with little to no difficulty. However, James Lee wasn't even touched by Ji Chang during their fight, and this was prime Ji Chang. Now I really want to stray away from making assumptions here, but since Prime James Lee is stronger than Prime Elite, and these two have only shown the use of invisible attacks during their fights, coupled with some martial arts use, we can probably equate that James Lee's mastery of invisible attacks was higher than that of Elite. Now we don't know at what difficulty Gapryong would have beaten Elite in their fight. If we knew that, this would be much easier. Either way, I wouldn't want to prolong this video any further. In my personal opinion, just because Tae-Soo said it in a way where it implied that the level of mastery Gapryong reached was harder to achieve than that of the invisible attacks, I think Gapryong takes this fight home. He would most probably come out crippled though.